Hello everybody, welcome to Simplified in 5. Today we are going to talk about observer design pattern. Let's try and cover this very important design pattern in 5 minutes. So let's first see if for which particular problem scenario you should be picking up the observer design pattern. So in your application, let's say there is one to many dependency between objects such that you want many modules to be notified when a particular module is done with some processing, or let's say you have one class which wants to notify many other classes depending on some particular scenario. In such cases you should be using observer design pattern. So let's say for example you have a class which calculates the average of marks of all students, and now once the calculation is done you want to reflect this average on UI, or you want to update this in database, and depending on this, let's say you want to start a new calculation. So in such case you should be because here is a one to many dependency, you should be using observer design pattern. So let's see 5 key things about implementing the observer design pattern. So you should create interface for subject and create its hierarchy. You should create interface for observer, and then you can have its hierarchy. In subject class you would be maintaining a list of observers. Make sure that you maintain the list of abstract class observer, so that subject and observer are decoupled and they can grow independently. uh, you should provide methods to add observer, to remove observers, and then notify all observers in the subject interface. So at the client side you would be creating concrete objects of subject and observers and making use of the design pattern, observer design pattern. So let's see very simple implementation of the subject interface. So here you can see the subject interface has method to add observer, to remove observer, and to notify, and a method to notify all observers. So it has a private vector where it maintains the uh, list of all observers it has who are registered to this subject. Then in the observer interface, let's say you have just one method called as update, and it takes float, which is average of marks, as an input. Let's see implementation of a concrete subject class called as average calculator. So here we are not showing the implementation for add observer and remove observer. So let's see basic implementation of instead let's see the implementation of a method called as calculate average. So here it has a float member called as average. There is, we have not put here the code to calculate the average of all marks, and once the average is calculated it notifies all observers by calling the method notify all observers. So in notify all observers, what this subject will do is it would iterate over the list of all observers and call update on each observer. So let's see implementation of the concrete observer classes. So let's say you have a concrete observer called as UI observer. So in its update, what it will do is, let's say simply it puts the average on cout, and in the DB observer, which is another concrete observer class, in its update, what it will do is it will call another method which will update the average field in database. So these are the very simple implementations for concrete observer classes. And at the client side, what you will do is you will first create an object of the subject called as average calculator. Then you have an integer of vectors where you pass all marks. Then you have concrete observers, UI observer and DB observer. You create their objects, add those observers to your subject, which is average calculator, by calling method add observer. Then you so in here what would you be calling is dot calculate average. So and here you would be passing all the marks. So on your subject you should be calling the method called as calculate average, and once you're done within calculate average, it will notify all the observers like UI observer and DB observer. So once that is done, you can start removing observers. So this is a very basic simple implementation for the observer design pattern. So we also saw how to implement the observer design pattern in very simple manner, and we also saw in which problem scenario you should be picking up the observer design pattern. So thanks for watching and hope this helps.